Well, I can speak to where I came on board, which was 2007.
Uh-huh.
And at that time, there was this concept. It was actually called elementary school greatness at the time. And there was this business plan for developing something, but we didn't know what it was. Sean had brought Sarah Noble, Blockstra now, but Sarah Noble at the time, from almost leaving the company to go work for Premier School Agendas full-time to stay on to lead this because he'd been out to A.B. Combs. That was the genesis of this whole thing, right? So the 8th Habit book has a video about A.B. Combs in it, and they had done great things. I shouldn't probably interrupt. Will these folks have known the A.B. Combs story?
I would assume so.
Okay.
But we can show that video, right?
Yeah.
We can include that. I'm not sure I'm going back into that, no.
Yeah, okay. Well, when Sean came back from seeing Leadership Day at A.B. Combs, Muriel had challenged him to say, you got to do something about this. People are coming to me all the time asking how we do this, and I've got a school to run here, so I need you guys who are good at scaling things globally to make this a process, really. So Sean took that pretty seriously, and Sarah was kind of the first person he assembled on that team. David Hatch was working with Stephen Covey to write the book, to do the research for Stephen's book, Leader in Me, version 1.0. And I happened to be in the right place at the right time and got hired into that team. And so the first job was to go out and see what was going on at A.B. Combs, and then about 5 other schools who were trying to follow that model. And then to figure out a process that we would, that would be the way that a school implemented and got the culture similar to A.B. Combs with all the great results they were getting. So we sat down and drew out a process map a couple months into it, and I actually have this folder. You and I just pulled this up. It is not complete, but it's Process Map Archive, and it's got all these different versions of the Leader in Me process map. Oh, that one never saw the light of day. Here's a good one. So people who say there have been different copies of the process map over the year, they're not kidding. This one actually stuck around for a while. That was it for a long time. But there were 40-something iterations at my last count. And again, not all of them were widely publicized, but at least 4 or 5 of them were. And so we kind of evolved our way into this. Mm-hmm. And it took a while to totally settle in. And I think it was really good because we actually got started and we got into schools and we started trying some things. It wasn't too long before we thought we need to have some kind of assessment of quality, like to distinguish this, what we're going for versus I'm just doing the process. And so we came up with the idea of a lighthouse school. And, sorry, let me turn that off. And we actually, the very first award was to award A.B. Combs lighthouse status. This was after there were probably a few dozen schools. So I went to their leadership day. There were several of us at that leadership day. We didn't have the award thing all worked out very well. So we bought a lighthouse bench online. And I still remember with Zach Cheney and a couple of tools up in our room at the Raleigh Marriott trying to assemble a wooden lighthouse bench in a hotel room and then carry it downstairs and take it to their leadership day and present them. But that was the first Lighthouse Award. And then it became clear, that there needed to be some criteria for how another school would get this. And the first set of criteria was brainstormed in a room as 9 things. It was, I shouldn't try to rattle them all off now because I might have forgotten. But, there was those 9 components. And when we first put that out to schools, they said, okay, great, I'm ready for my lighthouse review. I think we've done it all. And you go in there and you say, well, your environment, your physical environment doesn't reflect leadership at all. So there's got to be some component of that. Oh, okay. 2 weeks later, they call back. I put up some posters and the kids painted this wall, so now we're ready for Lighthouse. And it was a learning for us that the criteria had to be a little more robust. Like we had to specify what we meant by it. So Judy Yauk worked heavily on this. There's a lot of people. I'm leaving out all the names here because I'll forget somebody, right? But certainly Sarah, Judy Yauk, Jane Knight, myself, David Hatch, a lot of other people were involved. Sean, Joshua, Covey. we tried to define what were the points that said you're making progress against those 9 bullet points, and divided them into 3 stages. And so that was the first set of Lighthouse criteria, and there were 144 of those bullet points of, moving from, gosh, I forget what our 3 E's were back then, but it was like, you're just getting started, and then you're kind of making progress, and now you're really more mature. But there were some limitations to that. So as we matured as a practice, then we got to the Leader in Me framework. And I mean, I'm abridging 7 years of history here,
right.
but that was a big breakthrough. David Hatch, working with the team, writing the second edition of the Leader in Me, and looking at the Leader in Me 3.0 process. We knew we were going to update. We'd already done versions 1.0 and 2.0 of things that had Vision Day and Implementation Day. These were the workshops in the 2.0 process. They said, well, David actually brainstormed this idea that there's these 3 circles. There's leadership, culture, academics. These are 3 universal challenges that schools are trying to solve. And Leader in Me is hitting all of those, and it's acknowledging the intersection of all 3 of these things, that these aren't individual problems that we tackle sequentially. It's big integrated issues that require cross-functional solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we try to do. So from that, we were able to flesh out the Leader in Me framework, and that took a lot of work. And to get the leadership, culture, and academics columns, to define some results. The results are actually kind of the last thing that came along, still being defined a little bit. The paradigms are essential. And I think that was probably about 2013, 2014, where we really nailed the see, do, get framework. And then, that was 2014. So we've been doing that for a couple of years. And now we're at the point when you came on board, and I know you'll talk about this, as having a much more robust rubric